When can you sell an inherited property? Well, if you have inherited an asset, real property, stocks, anything like that, what happened was because of the federal tax code, that asset got an adjustment in tax basis, which means it got adjusted to the fair market value at the time of the person's death. So let's say that your mom passed away, and you were the only child and you received the house, or maybe you're not the only child, but you received mom's house through either the probate process or a transfer on death type of estate administration. Now the house has been deeded over to you. It is in your name. If that was through a transfer on death type procedure, on your mom's death, the house became yours. If it was through a probate process, the executor or the personal representative of the estate did what's called a PR deed, a personal representative's deed, and on behalf of the estate has now put the house into your name. It's your house now. The transfer on death process takes no time at all. The probate process will probably take 6 months, if not to a year. So even if it's your house coming to you, you don't have title to that house under the probate process for probably 6 months to a year. Once that house is in your name though, you can sell the house. And the really good news is that if you want to sell that house rather than keep it, when you sell that house, you will pay $0 in capital gains. So it's very advantageous to receive inherited property from the tax perspective, because you don't have to pay capital gains, because the capital gains was basically wiped out at death when the asset got an adjustment up to the fair market value. You sell it for fair market value, there's zero capital gains. So advantageous to inherit property and to sell the property from the tax code perspective. The timing of selling that asset depends on when that asset is put into your name. In a probate process, it will take longer. If you have a revocable living trust process, it still will take longer. Why is that? Because we have to ensure that there are no claims, creditors' claims against an estate, whether it's in a probate or a revocable living trust. So the transfer on death deed, same is true for that, but it's harder for creditors to come in if there's no probate process there. But the timing of it really depends on when that asset now is in your name. Once it's in your name, you are free to sell it, and it's a tax advantage type situation. Now, people, when they talk about taxes, I'm kind of gonna talk about taxes a little bit here, because I was just talking about capital gains tax. That is considered like an income type tax, right? We have all sorts of taxes, right? We have sales tax, we have excise tax. When you sell a home, you have, and by the way, if you sell that house, that inherited house, you will have excise tax, just not capital gains tax. There's, estate tax. And oftentimes people kind of roll up all the taxes into like one thing. It's like, oh, I have to pay taxes. Well, you have to identify what type of tax are you concerned about. In the example of selling this house, there was no estate tax. Why is that? Well, let's say that they lived in Washington State, and where we have a $2.193 million credit exclusion amount. The house was worth less than that, the estate was worth less than that. Therefore, this estate of the deceased person pays no estate tax. In Washington, we don't have an inheritance tax, so no inheritance tax needed to be paid on that. In the federal estate tax, just right now, 2022, we're at $12.06 million. And if you live in a state that is like Idaho, where there is no state estate tax, then your estate can pass free of taxes if it's below $12.06 million. So oftentimes when people are talking about taxes, there's a bit of confusion because we need to identify what sort of tax are we discussing. When you sell real property, there will be excise tax on the sale, but otherwise there isn't a capital gains tax, there isn't an estate tax, there isn't an inheritance tax under the situation I've described if this property is in Washington or in Idaho.